Before I even start unpacking the dystopian warnings of the past century, we must first address a minor logistical barrier. Do you find this too wordy or too long? Have you answered yes to the title? Then leave. This is not for you. Are you still here? Good. Because the society I'll describe would be too dumb to reach the end of this paragraph, let alone the editorial itself. This is the audio version of my editorial, Are You an Idiot? You can find the editorial and many other things I do in the description. So let's dive in. Allergy to the alphabet. How many people will actually read this, or a summary of this, or even an inspirational quote pulled from it, or their brain will process 3 consecutive sentences of the first disclaimer? In the era of the stupid, we have cultivated a society that views the written word with the kind of deep suspicion usually reserved for a software terms and conditions agreement. Let us be perfectly clear. We are no longer mourning the decline of reading books. We are talking about the sweat-inducing Herculean labor required for a few lines. We have bred a demographic of scroll zombies who diagnose a standard paragraph as a literal microaggression against their dopamine receptors. If a geopolitical crisis, a philosophical breakthrough, or a basic set of instructions cannot be spoon-fed through a 60-second video, preferably featuring a hyperactive influencer pointing at floating text, they feel an immediate brain death might happen. We have successfully subcontracted our basic literacy to a robotic text-to-speech voiceover, and there is a profound, bitter comedy in this. We are actively living in a dystopian nightmare, but no one has the attention span to read the manual of the dystopian reality. 1984 meets Brave New World. When discussing social control, we are caught between 2 distinct dystopian nightmares. On one hand, we see the suppression of new ideas and the complete rejection of sensory evidence characteristic of Orwell's 1984. On the other hand, much like in Huxley's Brave New World, we are willingly participating in our own distraction, pacified by endless mind-numbing entertainment while genuine critical thought slowly erodes away. We are currently navigating a paradox that would leave both George Orwell and Aldous Huxley completely baffled. We have access to the entirety of human knowledge in our pockets, yet we are collectively acting as if we are in the dark. This is not just a passing phase, it is a structural decline in critical thought. Welcome to what we can accurately call the era of the stupid. Online, our brains are proudly Neanderthal. Let us look at the actual biology of this collective regression. We love to pride ourselves on being the apex of human evolution, parading around with our smartphones capable of accessing the James Webb Space Telescope. Yet, the moment we connect to a Wi-Fi network, our neurology fundamentally reverts to that of a startled caveman. Digital stupidity is not just a catchy insult. It is a measurable physiological state. In the physical world, your prefrontal cortex is ostensibly in charge. This is the sophisticated evolutionary marvel of your brain responsible for complex logic, impulse control, and critical analysis. But virtual spaces are not designed for the prefrontal cortex. They are laser targeted at the amygdala, the primitive reptilian core of the brain responsible for our fight or flight survival instincts. We are dealing with a profound evolutionary mismatch. Our brains evolved to react instantly to sudden threats on the savannah, like a rustling bush or a predator. Today, algorithms exploit that exact same survival mechanism, substituting the stalking lion with a digitally manufactured political outrage or a hyper-polarized viral video. The tech conglomerate sitting in Silicon Valley did not build digital town squares. They built high-tech Skinner boxes. They understand that anger and fear are the most efficient hacks into human attention. If they can trigger your amygdala, your prefrontal cortex is effectively bypassed. Logic is suspended. Nuance is assassinated. You do not pause to verify a source or consider a counter-argument because your brain is biologically screaming at you to neutralize a perceived threat by furiously typing a comment. We are not evolving alongside our technology. We are being actively devolved by it. We have surrendered the crown jewel of human cognition, our capacity for reasoned, deliberate thought, in exchange for the primal, fleeting dopamine hit of digital tribalism. We are effectively bringing a stone axe to an information war, and we are losing badly. The death of nuance and irony. Let's hit a nerve. Something so stupid that a quick glance at a dictionary can clarify. Gilded literally means covering a cheap base metal with a microscopic layer of gold. A golden age implies intrinsic value, prosperity, and enlightenment throughout. A gilded age, by definition, implies a cheap facade, deception, and a rot hiding just beneath a shiny surface. It is important to note that the people living in the late 19th century did not proudly name their own era the Gilded Age. The term was coined by Mark Twain and Charles Dudley Warner in their 1873 satirical novel, The Gilded Age, A Tale of Today. They used the word specifically as an insult. It was a biting critique of an era where rapid economic growth and the extreme wealth of a few robber barons masked rampant political corruption, terrible labor conditions, and widespread poverty. The era was a cheap, corrupt metal painted with a thin layer of gold. Perhaps the most alarming symptom of our collective cognitive decline is the rapid disappearance of our ability to process irony, satire, or subtext. We are transitioning into an age of aggressive, unyielding literalism. The South Korean-born philosopher Byung-Chul Han perfectly diagnoses this in his critique of our digital age, which he calls the society of transparency. Han argues that our modern digital culture demands that everything be immediate, explicit, and smoothed out for frictionless consumption. By systematically eradicating ambiguity and nuance, we have inadvertently eradicated the exact psychological space where irony lives. Irony requires a cognitive gap between what is said and what is meant. It demands that the reader actively participate, think critically, and decode the context. But in the era of the stupid, critical thinking is a friction that the algorithm actively seeks to eliminate. We see this played out daily in internet culture. We have reached a point where digital communication requires explicit disclaimers, like the ubiquitous /s tag to denote sarcasm, because vast swathes of the population are no longer mentally equipped to read the room or interpret context. When a society takes everything at absolute face value, its critical distance vanishes. A population that cannot understand irony is a population entirely defenseless against the manipulation, outrage, bait, and political charlatans that define our modern digital landscape. What was the last time you searched for a word in the dictionary? The fact that anyone today would proudly compare our current era to the Gilded Age, or mistake the term for a compliment synonymous with a golden age, is a prime example of the cognitive decline I am debating. When modern commentators, politicians, or tech billionaires romanticize the Gilded Age, they are inadvertently proving my point about the era of the stupid. They are exposing a profound lack of historical literacy and critical thinking. They see the word gold and stop reading. Completely missing the satire, this golden versus gilded distinction serves as a perfect central metaphor for the digital age I'm analyzing in my piece. Metaphor 1, the gilded interface. Just like the 1800s, our modern digital world is heavily gilded. We have sleek, shiny devices and beautifully designed social media interfaces, the quote-unquote thin layer of gold that masks data harvesting, algorithmic manipulation, and the degradation of our attention spans, the quote-unquote cheap base metal. Metaphor 2, superficial consumption. We consume information the same way people misunderstand the word gilded. We look at the shiny headline, the aesthetic of the post, or the viral outrage, and we accept it as valuable without ever scratching the surface to see the hollow, often manipulated reality underneath. Metaphor 3, the illusion of knowledge. As the British-Iranian journalist Christian Amanpour noted regarding the weaponization of media, we have the illusion of a golden age of information. In reality, it is a gilded age of information, massive in volume and shiny on the outside, but largely devoid of actual solid truth. If ignorance is bliss, why is everyone so angry all the time? There is an old adage that ignorance is bliss. If that were biologically and sociologically true today, the era of the stupid should be the most joyful epoch in human history. We should be frolicking in a utopian paradise of empty-headed contentment, entirely unbothered by the complexities of the world. Instead, we are chronically miserable, perpetually offended, and ready to go to digital war over a 15-second clip lacking any discernible context. If we are thinking less, why are we hurting more? The answer lies in the fact that modern ignorance is no longer a passive state of simply not knowing. It is an active, highly profitable industrial complex. The algorithms that govern our digital lives do not monetize bliss. Bliss does not scroll. Contentment does not click. Nuance does not generate ad revenue. Outrage does. Obviously, I'll conclude by talking about Orwell and Huxley, but while I was writing it, my friend said something that I loved. Samara Fornarolli, a powerhouse in the Brazilian gaming and influence market.
I used to think Idiocracy was just a funny movie, a wild what if about a future that felt impossible. But after 12 years working in the middle of the gaming and influencer world, I'm starting to see it everywhere. It's like we're living through the prequel in real time. We've traded deep conversations for quick dopamine hits, and the Brondo of our world is definitely the algorithm that keeps us scrolling and distracted. I see how hard it is to keep things real when everyone just wants the loudest, flashiest content. It's not just about entertainment anymore. It's about how we're changing the way we think and talk just to stay relevant. we're dangerously close to becoming the punchline we used to laugh at. And it's time we talk about how to stop that from happening.
That's a terrifyingly accurate assessment, Samara, and it perfectly sets the stage for where I want to take this. While you're seeing the brawn dough of the algorithm in the gaming and influencer world, it strikes me that we are living in a bizarre hybrid mutation of the two greatest literary warnings of the last century. On one hand, we have the Orwellian fear of a state that monitors our every word, a literal ministry of truth for the digital age. But on the other, we're drowning in the Huxleyan prophecy of Brave New World. We aren't just being oppressed by what we hate, we're being controlled by what we love, losing our capacity for critical thought in a sea of endless, trivial distractions. We are trapped in the ultimate dystopian paradox, experiencing the absolute worst of both Orwell and Huxley simultaneously. We possess the profound cognitive laziness and demand for endless entertainment of Brave New World, yet we are fueled by the manufactured 2 minutes hate paranoia of 1984. We refuse to read, we are blind to irony, and we have surrendered our critical thinking to the amygdala's primal scream, but into that self-imposed intellectual vacuum. The machinery of this new gilded age pours a relentless, targeted stream of weaponized sensationalism. Nature abhors a vacuum. And in the digital age, the empty space where critical thought used to be is instantly backfilled with rage. We are not blissfully ignorant. We are violently misinformed. The ultimate tragedy of the era of the stupid, the grandest scam in a century of evolving frauds, is not just that we are willingly surrendering our collective intelligence, it is that we are actively paying for our own cognitive decline with our peace of mind, trading the hard work of actual enlightenment for the cheap, gilded thrill of being constantly, stupidly angry.
Save me now.
I've left the links in the description to the full editorial and much more. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to follow the show and 5-star us. Don't just be a scroll zombie, actually engage with the substance for once. And stay curious.